Hello and welcome to another edition of Sports Talk Philadelphia here on LaSalle TV. I'm your host, Josh Abrams. Today we're going to talk about the Flyers as they get down to the nitty-gritty in this end of the NHL season. When we come back, we're going to talk about the Sixers as they have a very tough schedule ahead as they try to make their way into the playoffs as well. All that and much more after this intro.
7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
You'll never have the sacred stone.
Oh, this you crazy mother.
Welcome back. As usual, I have a great panel on with me today to discuss some Sixers, but before we do that, Tyler Small, Jake Kopstick, thank you guys for joining us. We're starting to get into this routine now where we're talking about headlines, and while we can't fit every sport onto one show, it is worth noting that these headlines that we're about to talk about are noteworthy, especially for the city of Philadelphia. So the first one that we're going to bring up is that obviously we know that Bryce Harper is a Philly, signed for 13 years here, most likely going to be a Philly for the rest of his life. That is awesome. However, there's also word out that he wants his buddy Mike Trout to come here, and there are headlines out there. The Angels are obviously very upset about that, maybe all 30 of their fans, however many they have. So, nevertheless, what do you guys think about this whole, I'm putting quotes around tampering because we don't know what that really means anymore.
Do I think that it's bad that he said publicly that he wants to play with the greatest player on the face of the earth? Does anyone not want that? Does anyone? If anything, it shows that he's selfless enough that he wants to win a championship, make a dominant team by giving up the title for the best paycheck in baseball. Because I said it earlier, even if the Phillies sign him and somehow miraculously find a way to get this money together to pay more than $330 million for 13 years, he deserves it because he's so much better than Harper, which is saying a lot because now Harper obviously broke this record. So I don't see anything wrong with it. I understand why the Angels would be because they have no reason to keep him after this year. They said last season that they want to sign him to a lifelong contract, but I don't know why you'd want to stay there if they're not going to be winning anytime soon.
Yeah, I'm a little conflicted here because, it wasn't too long ago when us Philly fans were upset about Magic Johnson talking to Ben Simmons. So now that we're on the opposite side of the spectrum here, it maybe isn't the most ethical thing to do in any sport. When you're talking about almost bringing, I don't want to say a super team, but just, we've seen that happen and just bringing other players aboard.
Yeah.
But, I think Mike Trout's going to be here anyway. I almost feel like there's no need for it because I feel like he's coming anyway. So I feel like regardless of Harper saying anything to him, I think he's going to be here.
If they can make it work, I will never stop saying this. He has season tickets to the Eagles. He loves Philadelphia. It's his hometown. And he could certainly win a lot earlier than he would with the Los Angeles Angels.
Yeah, and I mean, it's really going to be interesting to see how this all works out. I'm kind of conflicted as well, Jake, but only because, the 2019 season hasn't even started yet. I would rather play out this season, see how everyone looks, and then we'll talk about free agency when the time comes. Mm-hmm. The other headline that we need to discuss is the Lane Johnson restructuring of his contract. It seems like this has just been a recurring theme this offseason. I don't know if it's the players being just very loyal to the organization or Howie Roseman just working his magic like he always does. Your thoughts on Lane Johnson restructuring his contract?
I think you're 100% right that it is the selflessness of these players, that they want to stay with the organization. They know they're getting older and that the market is growing, whether it's in the draft or in free agency, because a lot of players on the defensive end especially are getting released. So whether it's just them trying to stay loyal, I don't necessarily know because we can't hear the conversations, but I think it's huge for signing a big-name running back this offseason like a Le'Veon Bell or something to have that extra cap space.
Yeah, I just think it's good to see that, the Super Bowl year, Lane Johnson was fantastic, and he's still one of the best right tackles in the league. And, I mean, a lot of people are saying, his play was dropping off last year when they were going through that losing streak. But he's still one of the best right tackles in the game, and, it's just good that he's like the gift that keeps on giving now that he's taking money and they can allocate it to other places.
And so, obviously, like I said, this is freeing up cap space. I don't know where exactly the Eagles are in terms of how much money they have to spend, but do you guys think that it would be enough to essentially land. Maybe not someone like the caliber of Le'Veon Bell or Antonio Brown, but there's obviously, like as you said, Tyler, the free agency market's humongous these days. Do you think where we're at right now, do you think we're going to have to make a few more moves like that, or are we ready to go out and sign somebody?
I think there's still moves that need to be made. I think that it's a great start. Definitely, you're not going to complain about that cap space because it's a lot more than anyone could even dream about having. But if you really look at it, I think that they're going to be making a couple more moves, a couple paycheck losses, and hopefully they'll be able to sign a couple smaller pieces or go for that big short-term deal that they want.
Yeah, I think a guy to keep your eye on is Michael Bennett. He is a big cap hold. I know there's been some rumors that they want to get rid of him. And in the event they do, it's going to open up a lot of space. There's a lot of good running backs. I think a guy to look out for is Tevin Coleman. I think his ability to run and especially catch would be great for the Eagles and can give them a legitimate 3-down running back.
Yeah, absolutely.
Underused too.
Yeah, that would absolutely help out Carson, which is really all we need at this point. But that's going to do it for the headlines portion of the show. We're going to move on to Sixers talk. And since the last show, nothing's really changed. It could have changed last night. We were on the ropes with the Chicago Bulls, which is really bothersome for me to say. We're still in fourth place, and there's no reason why, at this point in the season, why a Victor Oladipo-less Indiana Pacers should still hold an advantage over us in the standings. That's sort of my rant to start this out, but there's obviously more to it than just that. We're still in fourth place. We're still 17 games above 500, but nothing's changed. What do you guys think is going on right now?
I mean, everything in the 76ers' interest is being done. They're winning the games they should. They just got outplayed by the Warriors. I wasn't worried about that. But the only thing I'd be concerned about was this Bulls loss. That could have propelled them above the Victor Oladipo-less Pacers and put them in third place so they wouldn't have to play the Celtics in the first round, which is still scary, especially with how well Gordon Hayward's been playing lately. But I think that was just brutal coaching in the last 2 minutes. Even in the last 5 seconds, you have 2 chances for the same exact play, and you get a lob-in throw to Jonah Bolden when he's covered by Robin Lopez in the first one, doesn't work. You get bailed out by a clock malfunction, and your second play is to give it to Jimmy Butler 10 feet behind the three-point line and have him heave up a desperation shot where he couldn't even catch. So I think that's on Brett Brown, the loss the other night.
Yeah, it's hard that, is Levine, is pretty much the only guy for that team that they're going to give the ball to in the last, in crunch time. He is open. 2 guys go with Robin Lopez. Why are 2 guys going with Robin Lopez? I would much rather have 2 people double team Zach LaVine. If he can get the ball to Robin Lopez and we lose on a Robin Lopez shot, I think I can live with that as long as somebody other than Zach LaVine beats us. But it was tough to see that, Zach LaVine was having his way on Mike Scott the whole game. Mike Scott and I think it was Butler, Simmons, whoever it might have been, went with Robin Lopez instead of covering Zach LaVine, and that killed it for us. Because I think that had we had Jimmy Butler or even Ben Simmons guarding Zach LaVine, I think they lock him down, we win the game.
And actually, Jimmy Butler was the one on him that switched off. And even besides that, double team Levine, I think even more than that, you just stay with your man. It wasn't even that good of a screen. You can get past it, you could hedge it, stay over the top, and then take away the three-point shot and take away the driving lane.
And it wasn't even that tricky of a fake handoff or whatever play that they ran. Lopez had the ball, and both guys followed him.
Especially when Simmons averages 10 points a game on that play alone. The 76ers love doing the fake handoff, and they couldn't even defend it.
Yeah, so it's just really bothersome. I think the bottom line, if there's anything that we've learned since the All-Star break ended, was that we need Joel Embiid back. Yeah. And I'm never going to forget about Boban either, because both of our big guys are out right now, and I've got to think that has something to do with it. There's a potential opportunity for Embiid to at least travel with the team tomorrow when they go to Houston, but with how shaky Embiid's health is, I'm not sure how to feel about him coming back and immediately having an impact on this game. And I guess going down the road for the rest of the season, what do you guys think?
Better yet, I wouldn't rush him back at all. I mean, going 2-2 in the last week obviously isn't what you want, and change the last state because you lost by 4 combined points to 2 teams. So changing the state of those at the end, changing a couple baskets that go in, you go 4-0 in the week, and then you're in third place. So I would not rush him coming back. Save him for the playoffs if that's what need be, instead of taking him back early. Because I think Jonah Bolden has done a pretty good job. He did a decent job of covering DeMarcus Cousins because he stretches out the floor, and DeMarcus Cousins does not work that way. So I think just be easy with them coming back. Be easy with both the bigs coming back because you don't know how lingering these injuries could be.
Yeah, I got to agree with Tyler. Don't rush Embiid back. They were in these games. They very well could have beat the Warriors and the Bulls. They're in these games late. And even with Boban being out, you have Justin Patton, who made his first appearance the other night. You have Amir Johnson and Jonah Bolden. See what you have at the backup center spot. See who you can use for the playoffs. Or, I mean, even if you want to run a set with maybe 2 centers or 2 big guys, just see what you have as far as depth goes. You know, I mean, you want Embiid back, but you got to see what you have for ultimately when you make the playoffs.
I was very impressed the other day with Amir Johnson. I mean, there was a
Yeah.
point in time a couple months ago where he had virtually turned himself into a player coach, and then the other night he scores 13, grabs
Yeah.
like seven boards. I
Yeah,
mean,
he can still play.
He may be pretty darn old, but he can still be effective on the court, and I'd like to think that's somewhat promising. But you know, Simmons, Butler, Tobias, I mean, those guys have really been relied upon a lot these last couple of weeks. And Simmons, and you know, I'm still trying to figure out why there are Sixers fans out there that would want to trade this guy, but you know, he has just been remarkable. And you know, going down the road for however long we don't have our big guys. Is there any of these 3 or anyone else on the team that you're looking to, you know, step up more, keep it going? You know, I know J.J. Redick's been struggling, so that's got to be something. That's got to have something to do with it too.
Actually, to kind of disagree with that. I think J.J. Redick's been doing better. He's still been struggling, don't get me wrong, but he has been doing better because he's just in a different role. He's not getting nearly the amount of shots that he should, and when he does, they're not clean looks all the time. But besides that, Harris, Butler, Simmons, I wouldn't change a thing. I think they all have their specific night when they become the controller, just whoever has the hotter hand. So I think if you just continue with that mindset, and if Simmons just has to act a little bit bigger for the time being without any real presence in the paint. So I think that they've both been doing great.
Yeah, if I could say one thing, I'd probably say that Ben Simmons, he's got to cut down the turnovers. He had a triple-double against the Warriors, almost went to a quadruple-double because he had 9 turnovers, so he almost hit. Yeah, he almost hit that. But, I mean, Tobias and JJ, I mean, you're not going to hit all your shots. You have off nights, it happens. But, I mean, as long as they get the looks they want, they're going to end up falling. I know that Tobias hasn't been playing nearly as well as he did right before we got him for the All-Star break, you know, that stretch of 4 games. And, I mean, even with Redick, he hasn't been making threes at the clip that we know he can make it.
Yeah.
But, when you have Embiid back who can kick it out, who can draw a lot more attention, I think they're going to get a lot more open looks when he comes back.
Yeah, certainly. And, you know, I guess it's really hard to kind of share the ball between such talented players like that. Real quick before we go to commercial break, there are a lot of tough games coming up for this team. I mentioned it earlier. It starts with tomorrow in Houston, and then a couple days later we host Indiana. I mean, out of all the games on that screen, that game on the 10th is and it's not going to make or break the season, obviously, but
It very well could. It very well could, actually.
Why do you say that?
Because if they don't start taking this 3 seed away from them, or they start moving down the rankings, then they're going to have a tough first round. Even if they're in the top 4 and they do have home court, they're still going to have tough competition, whether it is the Celtics or the Magic who are coming up. I mean, there's a lot of good teams in this East, and it has become the better conference. So I think the higher up you get, the easier game you have, you need. So that could be an early round exit if they don't take over the Pacers.
Josh, I know you like that Indiana game, but I have to look at the Boston game coming up at home. I have to look at that. We have, like, I need to see the Sixers make some progress against that team and even just pick up a win. There's been too many close games. Now that we have the team we have with all our new acquisitions, we have to beat them at home.
Yeah.
I have to know that we can beat them. So in the event that we get caught up with Boston in a 4 versus 5 seed series, that we can beat them. I have to see that from them.
Yeah, and we haven't seen it all season yet, so I think I'm with you on that one, Jake. Great points made by you guys. But we're going to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, we're going to talk some Flyers, so stay tuned. Tell me you didn't watch the Phillies game last night.
You know, unfortunately I did, and it was just so heartbreaking to see the first 8 batters strike out.
Claude Giroux hasn't done anything for this organization.
I'm confused. You're doing an internship in sort of marketing and production, right?
I really can't believe that Ben Simmons won't be dropping threes on the court this year.
Hey, Tanya, I know you're really busy, but could you tell me who the Sixers play on October 28th?
Doctor, in order for the Eagles to win this week, they're going to need 250 passing yards from Carson Wentz. We're going to need 100 yards rushing. I don't care who it is. We're going to need a lot of good production from our tight end and wide receivers. And I'm going to need 5 interceptions from Malcolm Jenkins. Yeah, Mom, look, I know the money situation isn't good right now, but I promise you Travis Konechny's going to have a breakout year.
Hey, I had to climb to the top of Mount Everest to find Nick Pavetta's ERA.
Sports Talk Philadelphia. We talk nothing but sports all the time.
Yo, bro, what's good?
What's going on?
How you feeling, man?
Doing good. How you doing?
When'd you start smoking?
Smoking? It's a Juul, bro.
It's a Juul?
Yeah.
Listen, you might as well be smoking cigarettes. When you start juuling or vaping, you're 4 times more likely to start smoking cigarettes.
Is that true?
That's very true. Give me the Juul. You don't need it.
To learn more about e-cigarettes, go to thetruth.com.
Welcome back from the commercial break. Jake steps off. Sam Brown and Jamie Smith join us to talk some Flyers. Thank you guys for joining us. It has been, much like the Sixers, nothing has really changed with this Flyers team. They are still searching for a playoff spot. And although that narrative isn't going to really change in the course of a week, I got to ask, I've asked you guys every week. Jamie, start us off. How are you feeling about the Flyers? They have 72 points. Are you feeling a playoff appearance this year or not?
I would love to see us in the playoffs, but I've never seen a more inconsistent team than the Flyers. We got to admit that. I mean, we could go from a 10-game losing streak to a 5-game winning streak to losing 5-0, and I would love to see us in the playoffs. Everyone would, but it's every game right now counts, and if we keep losing and we keep keeping these stats down, we're not going to get in the playoffs.
What do you guys think? I mean, we talk about how inconsistent this Flyers team is every year. I'm glad you brought that up. Mm-hmm. I mean, why? How? I mean, we have obviously it's a new almost everything now with this team except for the players. It's what's going on?
Well, like you said, a lot of changes have been made. Some of them, most of them for the better. Getting rid of a lackluster coach was certainly a great start. Just changing up the environment has really given the players a kick in the pants that they needed, but it may be too little too late at this point. And like Tyler has been saying for the past few weeks now, maybe it's not such a great thing if they make the playoffs.
Yeah, I was just going to disagree with your point, Jamie. I don't want to see them in the playoffs this year because although it would be fun to see another first-round stunt, maybe they get 2 or 3 home games, but I just think that you'll just keep going to the same place and not coming up anywhere farther than that. Keep having first-round early exits. So I think they have really been a shaky team, very inconsistent, and you could even see it in games. Look at yesterday's game against the Capitals. Terrible. They didn't.
Terrible.
The first 2 periods were completely different than the last, and then it just was too little too late. So I think that they need that consistency, and they just need more chemistry together.
Well, I'm glad you brought up that Capitals game. Jamie, you were there last night.
I was.
Was there anything that you saw that stood out at you? Why we got down 5-0? Was it more on Brian Elliott, or was the defense just playing that bad?
I mean, Brian Elliott did lead. He'd let in 2 of the goals I think could have been stopped and could have been saved. There were 2 soft goals, but I think it was mostly our defense just breaking down and very, very inconsistent passing. You can't have a team only show up for 1 period, And yeah. I think that's what it was last night. And the first 2 periods, we just were not there. We had no chemistry. Our passing was slow. Everyone was just slow. And I think that we came back in the 3rd period and we almost had them, but we were just too short. I think the first 2 periods just costed us too much.
Yeah. So I guess going off of that, is there anything to do this season that I feel like when you enter the new year or somewhat into January with the worst record in hockey, it's just kind of, like you said, too little, too late. And I mean, is there anything positive that you guys can look at just in terms of players? I know Sam,
Exploding
you're pretty
early.
big. Say that again.
Exploding early.
Okay.
They did that against the Islanders over the weekend. Why couldn't they bring that same fire, that same intensity into the first period into that Capitals game that they did into that Islanders game? I hate to say it, but we've been saying it over and over again, and I'm going to say it now. Inconsistency, it's really killing them.
And I think even to go off that point, you sometimes see it in the beginning of the game, but I just think that are just a huge momentum team. If one thing is going right, the rest of the game goes right for them. So I think that's definitely a good takeaway. You just need to build more momentum around the team. But also, I think that the goaltending has been great this week. I mean, you did say that Elliott had a rough game yesterday, but Talbot and Elliott are averaging over 35 saves a game. I mean, they really have been doing a good job in between the net. So I think that is something good to look at for people that are going to be behind Hart for the next couple of years.
Well, speaking of Carter Hart, where has he been? I mean, I know in the NHL, these injury designations are so broad in general that you can't really tell what's wrong with a player, and that's obviously very annoying for the average sports fan. But with Carter Hart being out, do you think that's had any effect on their play recently? Obviously, like we said, they're not playing well, but they're not playing terrible either. So do you think having him back would make any sort of difference in that aspect at all?
I'm surprised at how little of a drop-off there was, honestly. When starting with the Stadium Series, I think his first game out I thought that, they wouldn't win that game just because Elliott really has been in goal for a while because they overworked Carter Hart. So I'm surprised that the drop-off hasn't really been that much. It just caused the offense just to step up and the backup goaltenders to step up a little bit. But I think they've done a pretty outstanding job of that.
And then when he comes back, you just have to hope that they have that same drive that they have been giving all of their goaltenders as of recently. It doesn't matter who they're playing in front of. They're still getting the job done most of the time. Obviously, the game against the Capitals was not a case where that happened, but it doesn't matter who's in net. They're still finding ways to win games.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, we did get rid of. I really wish we did not get rid of Solars. I don't think that was a good idea.
I still don't understand that move.
I don't understand it, but we did get Cam Talbot, and he did come in after the fourth goal, I think, last night. They switched him for Elliott, and he was a positive reinforcement when he came back, and people were not faithful in him. I heard the crowd. People were not very faithful in him, and I think that he did a good job at keeping us in it at the end, even though we didn't win, but he did do a good job.
Well, I'd like to think that something very positive to take out of these last couple of weeks is the emergence of Travis Konechny. Now we're all on social media. We saw the video of him, mic'd up at the Stadium Series games, just chirping at Penguins players. I know something little like that doesn't really mean much for the long term, but I would like to think him having that attitude on this Flyers team is going to keep him on the team for a while.
I mean, and that's something that we lost with Wayne Simmons. Let alone like the grittier side of it, but he's an initiator. He's somebody that's always going to be in their head, and that's huge in hockey. So I think that's something that is a nice relief and something that we're getting back from losing Wayne Simmons.
He's a personality this team needs, especially being on the younger half of the roster. It really uplifts the players in his age group around him, seeing that they can focus themselves around a player that's around their age and can, join in with him on bringing that intensity and bringing that fire to the ice.
Especially because he was, even for younger guys, you'd say, he's barking at some of the big guys. He was going at Sidney Crosby. He was going at Malkin. I mean, he doesn't have any fear in that.
If no one's safe from anyone. And no one is safe from trash talk from Konechny, and that's what we love in this city.
Do you have any thoughts on Konechny, Jamie?
I think Konechny has been a very consistent player for our defense because a lot of our defenders had been very inconsistent, and I think that we did lack some grit in our defense, and I think our only real tough player was Radko Gudas, and I love Radko. I think he was our real reinforcement back there, and it's always good to have more than one reinforcement back there. So I think that seeing that he's so young, hopefully he can grow with the team and keep that up.
Yeah, and I'd love to see him on the team for a while. That's going to do it for Flyers Talk. We're going to move on to Fast Five. And Tyler, I'm going to come to you. We didn't talk Phillies today, but the first thing I'm going to ask you about them is there anything else the Phillies need to do before we get the season underway? Like any other moves they need to make?
Simply put, no. I think the next time we're going to see somebody major come into the city, I think it will be a Phillies pitcher, and I think it will be at the trade deadline.
That's pretty understandable. I think it might be a little late to do anything now. Sam, we're going to stick with the Phillies. Who is your favorite offseason move besides Bryce Harper?
I really like the JT Realmuto trade. I have really come around to it, giving up how they gave up Alfaro so early because I really liked him. But now that Realmuto's in, the best catcher in the game, hitting at Citizens Bank Park, it's going to be a great season for him.
Jamie, Voracek's been out. Who's replacing him? Who are you looking to have replace him?
I would love to see Sam Morin in there. I think that I've been looking at him since he was, I've been scouting him, and he's 6'6", he's a huge guy, and I think that that's what we need in the back is just a big dude to just keep the reinforcement and to fill some shoes if we have people that are out. And I think that he's going to be a great, if we bring him up, I think that he's going to be a very positive reinforcement in the back.
All right, Sam, we're going to come back to you. Sticking with baseball, you brought up to me before the show about a potential MLB expansion.
So there's always been rumors about where the Major League Baseball is going, and I did know that the commissioner came out and said that expansion to 32 teams is inevitable at this point, and it's just a matter of where these teams will be. I've heard rumors of Raleigh, North Carolina, Portland, Oregon. It'll be interesting, East and West, to see where baseball is going to grow.
Nashville, Tennessee, too, is another big place.
All right, Tyler, the last Fast Five question of the day is something that's really making a lot of national headlines. Kyler Murray, there's talk about him going #1 to the Cardinals. The Cardinals have Josh Rosen, who they drafted in the first round. It's not really going to be up to him, but do you think Kyler Murray should go #1 overall?
I think that he is a perfect fit in #1 for the Cardinals. Going under a new coach, Cliff Kingsbury, is going to be, in my opinion, a motel version of Sean McVay. But if you look at it, there's been questions about his leadership from people that, quote, unnamed sources. So I think that's just nothing really to look at, because if you look at him working under Lincoln Riley, had 1,000 rushing yards, 3,361 passing yards in a very pro-style offense. So I think he's ready for the #1 pick.
All right, well, that's going to do it for this edition of Sports Talk Philly. You can catch us on social media at Sports Talk LTV. That is on Twitter. You can also catch us on Facebook and YouTube. Also catch us on our university website, lasalle.edu/LaSalleTV. We hope you guys enjoy the rest of your weekend. Please tune in next week, or the week after that, rather, because we're going to be on break. But we hope you guys enjoy your weekend. Let's go Philly sports.
Thank you.